welcome to The Charm of It, where I discuss pursuing coziness whilst living in a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy in need of toppling. If you're a returning viewer, it's wonderful to see you again, and if you're a new viewer, I'm really glad that you found your way to my little corner of the internet. If you enjoy people deep diving into their hobbies, then you are in the right place. I'm Eva, a chronically ill, endlessly curious, disabled knitter who uses she/her pronouns. I live within sight of Lake Ontario with my partner Joel and an assortment of pets on Haudenosaunee homeland, specifically that of the Onondaga, known to settlers as the Seneca. This land became settler land after a sustained ethnic cleansing campaign carried out by European colonists, including General George Washington during the Revolutionary War, who ordered the razing of villages and winter foodstuffs in order to force the Onondaga from their lands. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy nevertheless persists, and it consists of 6 nations, of which the Onondaga are the westernmost, hence their name Keepers of the Great Hill or Keepers of the Western Hill. Haudenosaunee means people of the longhouse because the longhouse is a symbol within their culture for peace and families living together, people living together in peace, and the Confederacy was founded by the Great Peacemaker. Today I will be talking about knitting. I've got a couple works in progress, a lot of finished objects, and for my topic I thought I would discuss knitting patterns multiple times. So let's get to it. I have been knitting a lot the last 2 weeks. I've been in a bit of a reading slump. Apparently my brain would just rather knit, and it would particularly rather knit small objects. So I haven't made a lot of progress on my sweater, but I will show you what I have. Uh-oh, bag is caught. There we go. I showed you this in the last episode, and I have now completed the body to the underarms and bound off for the underarms. I actually knit one of the fronts. I was thinking about doing raglan shaping because I thought it would be neat to echo the diagonals of this in the raglan shaping. So I did one of the fronts that way, and then I decided I didn't actually like it because there's inevitably a section, sorry, pop some stitches off, there we go. There's a section that ends up just being plain pink without having the slip stitch decoration, and I like it better when there's kind of this illusion that this is just the complete fabric. So instead, I have decided that I am going to do a seamless round yoke. Is that what they're called? Where you just do the decreases on certain rounds all together versus the raglan where you're doing a handful of decreases every other round. And I think that that will let me maintain the pattern consistency all the way up. So since I have finished the body, this is obviously going to be a cropped cardigan. I need to start the sleeves, but in order to do that, I have to go back and measure my gauge because I'm doing the shaping through gauge instead of through stitches, and figure out what needle to use for my cuff, and I just haven't felt like doing that. I think I'm going to do 3/4 sleeves. So I need to measure my other shorter sleeve cardigans and decide, what width I need and all those fun things. And like I said, just haven't felt like doing it. Moth, hey. Oh, thank you. Please stop. That is my cat Moth, for those who don't know. So, yeah. I'm sure that I'll get to the sleeves soon. I don't see the point in forcing myself to do something when it's just a hobby. So instead, I've been knitting a lot of smaller projects using other people's patterns so that I don't have to put a lot of brain power into it. My only other work in progress are a pair of socks. And these are a shock pattern by Hunter Hammerson from the Silk Road Socks book. And I mentioned last time that I was planning to cast these on next. Now, I did modify this a little bit. The pattern calls for this textured part to be repeated, this one to be repeated once more, and then the little one to be repeated once more. So to have a band about that thick, and then to just have a plain vanilla foot. But one of the Ravelry projects I saw had this shorter band, and I really loved how that looked. So I decided to go ahead and copy her and do that as well. I'm also planning to add a fox face to the toe, so I'm going to switch to a cream for the toe. And that's because I had some fox socks that I loved and wore all the time, and I wore them out. So these are my replacements for that, and that's why the color is kind of a variegated orange tone. And I'm really looking forward to that. This pattern reminded me a lot of the Star Shower cowl pattern, so it's a little bit fiddly, but I really like the final result, especially in a variegated yarn. And since these are for me, it's a 60 stitch sock, so it's going pretty quickly. I have D&D to play tonight, and that's what I'm planning to do. I do have to wind up the cream for the contrast, though, since I have not done that yet. Next up, I will be talking about my finished objects. Oh, and I forgot to mention I am wearing a brioche cowl, I think, or a fisherman's rib cowl. It was a free pattern from Pearl Soho that I knit a little while ago. If I'm not wearing a cardigan, I love to wear cowls over long sleeve t-shirts in the winter. Okay, so first up are my Paddington Station socks, which I finished, but I have not woven in the cuff ends. It's going to be a theme of finished objects this episode. Have I woven in the ends yet or not? Anyway, I'm really pleased with how these turned out. They're a cool chocolate brown color, and I've already worn them a couple times. They go with a lot of my clothes. I've mentioned before I wear a lot of brown in winter. And the texture pattern makes them very cozy, and they hug my feet really well. So I would definitely recommend this. They're based on a pattern by Ambrose Smith, inspired by a Miss Marple book. And I guess if you want to learn more, you can check out the last episode. Making a lot of dramatic noises this episode, sorry. I have also knit several hats. So first, I knit the Breakwater hat by Yelly Knits, which is a new pattern. It's her first one that she just released, and I loved it so much that I ordered it, and I actually ordered it in a kit from Firebird Yarns out in California, which is where Yelly is, and this is part of a collection that's inspired by the Californian coast. Obviously, this is not the best hair to wear for hats, but and I was able to live in Monterey for a little while, so it's a part of the country that I have a lot of fondness for. And this is actually a color work pattern, and I knit it using these two yarns. This one is Kente by Fully Spun, a Black-owned dyeing business, and this is Seismic Yarns in the Army Street colorway, I think, dyed by another Eva, although I don't know if that's how she pronounces her name, who is a Taiwanese American. So here they are. They're both really soft. I think they're both superwash merinos. I am knitting hats for my community this year, particularly people who have problems finding shelter in my community. I want to help make sure that they stay warm. We have quite difficult winters, and so I'm knitting those things out of superwash yarn so that when they have a chance to do laundry, the hat isn't going to be messed up or anything. And I decided to do fingering weight so that it would dry more quickly in the rain. But as you can see, this one, the contrast color, is a gradient, and I really like kind of the subtlety of the diagonals. I have decided that I'm going to knit another one of the Breakwater hats using this and a plain cream background, just to see what that looks like. I knit the larger size option in the pattern in the regular length, and it fits me as kind of a slouchy beanie, especially here. I'll just take my hair. Okay, it fits me, there we go, a little bit slouchily, which I love. And then when I had Joel try it on,
it fit him as like a nice snug beanie. So I think that Yelly did a really great job of doing the sizing. And I actually think that this would be a perfect first-timers stranded colorwork pattern because it's a very simple pattern. It's easy to understand. You're counting to 5 over and over again. And I think it would, Moth, no, don't do that. And it would be a great opportunity to kind of practice your color work and just have this really lovely hat. The decreases at the crown are really fun too. Yeah, and it comes in 2 size options and then a slouchy or less slouchy version. And as I said, this is the larger size option, but regular length. And I think it fits perfectly, honestly. It's a great pattern that I would definitely recommend. Yelly is great. If you don't follow her on Instagram, you should. Yelly Knits. And it actually, I think it would be a great scrap buster too. I did not take notes this time, can you tell? I meant to. Anyway, I think it would be a great scrap buster because it only took 18 grams of the contrast yarn, which I know that quite a few people sell like 20-gram mini skeins, so that's pretty neat. And then I think it took about 28 grams of the main color. I've used this in another project since. So I suspect I'll be knitting quite a few breakwater hats. Just because, like I said, it's a really simple, soothing knit. I was able to knit it while reading. And I think it will be great to use up leftover bits and bobs. And it's a very contemporary looking design to me and very kind of unisex. So I like that about it. I hope you cannot hear Nessie whimpering. This is her usual nap time, but Joel had to leave and come back, and so any disruption to her routine, and she is just deeply offended. Speaking of Joel, the next hat is one that I knit for him, and I just finished it this morning. So here it is. It is another beanie style hat, and I used the same green from the first hat from Seismic Yarns, and then I just used a cream yarn that I had in my stash. And this is the Norland pattern. And as you can see, it also makes a beanie. I made one modification, and that is the brim. I knit a 4-inch long brim in the main color so that it could be folded up, and because Joel loves green. Whereas the pattern calls for, I think, just like a 1-inch brim in the contrast color, the white. But other than that, I knit this 2 pattern. I knit it for the first time last month, even though I've had this pattern for quite a while. A generous knitter gifted it to me. And I've actually tried to knit it a couple times, but I didn't like my yarn choices either time. So last month I had some leftover pale gray and deep red yarn, and it just seemed like a perfect Christmassy knit. So I went ahead and knit that up for my friend Sarah, and when Joel saw it, he really loved it. And he's very knit-worthy, but he's also very particular, so I was quite surprised because in the past he's told me that he only wants a knit hat if it's got like a brim, like not this style brim, but you know, like a baseball cap like this, like a newsboy cap or something. So I knit him one of those, but I didn't like it because I had to knit the brim so firmly. It was really hard on my hands. So I haven't knit him another hat. But he loved this one. So I said that, of course, I was willing to make him one as well. And then when the green yarn showed up, it just seemed perfect. I love this pattern. So as you can see, it is a combination of cables and stranded knitting. And the other really neat thing about it that I think is part of why Joel liked it so much is that it makes this 5-petaled flower shape at the crown, which looks almost identical to the symbol of Rochester, the city that we live in. So I'm sure that that's a coincidence, but it's a really awesome coincidence if you happen to be a happy, proud Rochesterian, which Joel and I both are. Oh wait, I shouldn't put my hair up yet. I have one more hat to show you. Since I just finished this morning, I haven't weighed the yarn yet to see how much it took of each color, and to see how much more I can get out of this. But yeah, so I found this pretty straightforward to knit. I thought it would be pretty challenging with the cables and stranded, but I think because I'm quite comfortable with stranded knitting and also because I cable without a cable needle, and these are all quite small cables, I did not find it that tricky to knit. The crown decreases when everything gets put on double pointed needles instead of a circular needle. That was not as much fun. Um, but luckily by then you're pretty much just doing the 2-color cabling. And the chart is really easy to follow. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I love the result. I think that this is so beautiful and so striking. I happen to be watching oh my goodness, a podcast, Stash Knits, I think, Knit Your Stash. Yes. And she has adapted this pattern into a cowl, so flat versus having the decreases at the crown. And that made me realize that I could adapt it into a sweater. And I've been wanting to do a colorwork sweater with like a wintry scene at the bottom and then just the flecks of contrast through the body. I have the yarn in my stash and all that, but I hadn't quite decided on whether I was going to do like a winter forest scene or a winter city scene or what I wanted to do. But now I want to do this growing out of the waistband and then just have it go into the lice pattern at the top. And so while I was knitting the second version of the Norland, I was really paying attention to what was going on with these branches because I would like my trees to be round. But yeah, so I'm excited about that possibility. And the third hat is the other one that I still need the ends woven in on, but I would like your advice about it. Oh, and I just realized that I don't remember the name of the pattern for my third hat. So let me bring it up really quickly. Okay. This is the Brioche Waffle Beanie by Seisha Green. And it is a paid for pattern. It cost $4.50, and I think it was well worth it. It's a fingering weight yarn, or it's 4 fingering weight yarn. It comes in several sizes, and it's reversible. So it's got this waffle stitch pattern on one side, and then a simpler brioche pattern on the other side. And it's so soft and squishy. So once again, I knit the large version, but I stopped knitting at 6.5 inches, which is a little shorter than the pattern called for, just because having just knit the breakwater hat, apologies, having just knit the breakwater hat, which I really liked how that fit, I had more of a sense of what length I wanted. But here it is. And I think it's really, really cool that it's reversible, and I want to make sure that sorry, this is from the tubular cast on. I just haven't trimmed it up yet. Anyway, so here it is on the other side with a little bit more texture to it. And I want to make sure that I maintain that reversibility when I weave in this end. I'm not as worried about the bottom end because since you do a tubular cast on, it's pretty easy to hide the end in the tube. But I'm not sure how to weave in this crown. And I thought that maybe one of y'all would have some advice. So if you have any tips for how to weave in ends when you're trying to keep something reversible, let me know. This yarn, and it took 38 grams, which is nice, I think, especially, once again, this one fits Joel really well as well. The brioche stitch is really squishy and also really lightweight, so I think it'll be easy to stuff into a pocket. This is from Birch Hill Fiber Arts, and I bought it from Dawn Landix's new store, which is Knit Yarn Stuff. I don't know what the colorway is. I forgot to write it down, and I don't think I have the yarn label anymore. Let me check. Nope, I do not. And I checked my email, but it wasn't in there. So it's a mystery colorway, which is a shame because I bought 2 skeins of it, so I will be knitting more hats with it. And I also used it to knit the tom-tom socks that you saw in my last episode. So this is still that same 100-gram ball. It just keeps going. And I've got enough left over. I have 42 grams left over, so I can knit another one of these hats, or check out alternative hats. I have not decided yet. No pun intended. This was only my second time doing brioche. The first time was a cowl that I knit. Not this cowl, this is a fisherman's robe. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. This is half brioche, I believe. The pattern was really well written. I didn't have to look up any separate tutorials. The decreases are so clever. The way that she does them so that they look so great on both sides really, really impressed me. Not gonna get a focus. Well, take it from me. Very impressive. And once again, I think this is a really nice unigender kind of hat that I definitely plan to knit again, and I think is well worth the $4.50. And Seisha Green is a Black designer. But I was saying, I really enjoyed knitting the brioche, and I know that brioche is very popular amongst the knitting community, and it's just not something that I've ever really gotten into. And now I want to try it out some more. I think 2-color brioche knitting would be really fun as well. So adding that to my to-do list for 2021. Those are all of my hat finish projects. So I can put my hair back up. But I do have 2 more finished objects because, like I said, I went on a bit of a knitting kick. We also had a long weekend here, and then with Inauguration Day and everything, I think my brain decided that the best way to cope with stress was to just knit. So I knit another pair of the Ripple Butt shorts. And this is a pattern that relies on a lot of negative E, so it looks pretty funky when it's on. And I also knit it with stash yarn that is a cotton milk fiber blend that I received from a really generous knitter who was destashing. And I'm so grateful for it because these are from my mom, and she is really sensitive to wool, so I tend to knit for her in plant fibers. And it was great to be able to just go to my stash and whip these out when she saw mine and requested a pair of her own. And I think it makes a really comfortable fabric that she'll like to wear, but whew, the pattern calls for a pretty large gauge for DK weight yarn, like you're knitting it pretty loosely, and I just think that this yarn is looking a bit wonky at that gauge. It doesn't look nearly as wonky when you're wearing it, see, when it stretches. But I still think that these don't look as good as mine, which were knit in a superwash merino yarn. And I think that that's just wool has a tendency to plump out, unlike plant fiber. And my mom thinks that they look great, and that's what matters. The modifications I made were the same that I made for my own pair, in that I did a crochet chain drawstring instead of I-cord, and then I shortened the rise. In this case, it wasn't because I was worried about running out of yarn. I have a lot of this yarn. I think I have 700 grams, 600 grams, 600 grams. I was planning to knit my mom a cardigan, but she said she'd rather have these and a matching camisole. So I shortened the rise a little bit because my mom is quite short. She's shorter than me, and I shortened the rise on mine and think that they're a really comfortable length. So did that. I lengthened the shorts part just a little bit as well, I think by an inch or 2, so maybe 3 to 5 centimeters. And yeah, once again, that was just based on how I wear mine. I plan to knit my next pair a little bit longer. I crocheted the chain before I started knitting the rest of it, and so then when it came time to fold over the band, I could just put the drawstring in, and that was a lot simpler. I would definitely recommend that. And if you're interested in more of my thoughts on the Ripple Butt Shorts pattern, which is by Jessie May Designs, you can watch the last knitting episode. I am currently doing a giveaway for that pattern, so anyone who leaves a comment on my YouTube videos this month, January, will be entered in the drawing. And if I draw you and you don't want it, that's fine, just let me know and I will draw another person. I decided that that was the easiest way to handle that. And I'm using YouTube because I know not everyone can access Ravelry these days. If you can't leave a comment on YouTube for some reason, you can DM me over on Instagram. Okay, so once I finish the butt shorts, which were really a one-day project for me, it's a lot like knitting a hat, honestly. especially in DK yarn. Like I said, I think I would do, especially for plant fiber, a true worsted yarn versus a DK in the future, just to avoid this, or go down in needle sizes and adjust the pattern. So then I knit my mom a camisole, which looks even funnier. Oh man. My mom is smaller than me, so even if I wanted to model this for you, I couldn't. But this is what it looks like stretched out. A little bit more like a camisole. Because there's so much negative ease, in order to, have it be camisole length, when it's not stretched, it just looks really long, but it loses a lot of that once you put it on. And this is based on another Jessie made pattern, the Ripple DK bralette. Excuse me, I don't know why my nose is always so itchy when I podcast. And it's knit with the same cotton milk fiber yarn. And so her pattern is for a bralette. So, a little bit like a sports bra. And so I followed the directions. I got my mom's measurements and I followed the direction for the size small from here up where that ribbing changes. All of that is based directly on the pattern. And I thought it was really cleverly done, especially I really enjoyed the directions for the I-cord for the straps, which I just said I don't like I-cord, but I liked the way that she had me do this wide I-cord. And it joins in the back. Oh my gosh, I swear my knitting is not this wonky. And then I thought that the edges look, like she paid a lot of attention to finishing details, and you don't have to finish anything. Once you finish the straps, you do have to connect them to the back of the shirt, and then you're done. Like, you don't pick up any stitches or anything like that. It's all just kind of built into the pattern. And when I tried it on to check the strap length, it felt really supportive down here. Now, I am small busted, so take that with a grain of salt. The designer is generously busted, though, so I'm assuming that if anyone would know how to design supportive bras, it would be someone with a generous bust line. Yeah, so I was really impressed by that. And like I said, I followed the pattern from here up, and all I did was I cast on the number of stitches that I would have cast on for here and just knit an extra length. So I cast on down at the bottom with the twisted German cast on, which I'm pretty sure is what the pattern recommends, and just knit in the same 3x3 ribbing that it is up here until I think I was aiming to double the body length. Well, nope, I did a little more than double. Since I hadn't knit this before and there's so much negative ease, it was a little tricky deciding how much length to knit. But when I tried it on, it did hit right at my high hip, which I think is what my mom wants. So I think I'm going to knit a bow or pom-pom or something. I should talk to my mom to put as a little decorative touch right there. But other than that, I have finished up my mom's little loungewear set. And she's been going through a rough time, and we haven't gotten to see each other because of the pandemic. And this is the longest we've ever not seen each other in person, which has been really tough. So it feels really nice to be kind of knitting her a little care package. Since I have a lot of yarn left over, I'm thinking I might knit some slippers or something to go with it. I might have enough yarn actually to knit like a lightweight cardigan. I was originally planning to knit like one of those long cardigans with the pockets, and I don't have enough yarn now for that, but I might have enough to knit a lightweight kind of wrap that she could toss on over the camisole if she gets cold. So we shall see. I'm so fortunate to have had knitting friends and viewers send me yarn over the years, and it makes such a big difference as far as my ability to knit and all of that. So I'm really grateful for that. Even though I wish that this looked tidier, but I'm sure that's on me as well. I think the more quickly I knit, the less neat my stitches look. And I would definitely recommend the Ripple bralette pattern. I'm going to knit myself a camisole to match the shorts that I made myself, or to make a set. It won't match. And I think, though, that for me, I'm going to have to do a few modifications because, like I said, I am small busted and I'm widely set. So I need to have a little more width right here. So I haven't decided yet if I'll just go up a size or two. The pattern calls for 9 to 15 inches of negative ease, which is a lot. And I understand that knitting stretches so much that that's really what you need if you want it to be really snug and supportive. But since I'm looking more to make a shirt than like a supportive undergarment, I might be able to just size up a couple of sizes and then have it fit the way that I want it to. So we will see. But yeah, I really love the way that the top of the camisole is constructed. It's really simple, it's fun to knit, and I think it looks nice and tidy. So it's nice to not have much finishing work. I did have some ends to weave in. But I am almost finished with the podcast. Thank you so much to everyone who bore with me. I know that that was a lot of finished objects. More than I will usually have, I am sure. But I wanted to briefly discuss knitting multiples, and this is also because of I hope that you enjoyed hearing about all of my finished objects. I've had a really good time being on a knitting streak the last couple of weeks. I don't expect it to last, so I'm just enjoying it while my body is capable and my brain is interested. I did want to talk about knitting multiples, and this is inspired by another episode of Knitting the Stash, which is the same YouTube podcast I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the Norland hat. And so she discussed knitting patterns multiple times, and honestly, it's not something that I've done a lot of in the past. I've knit some sock patterns multiple times, but that's pretty much all I can think about. But it feels like, as I mentioned, I didn't knit for quite a while last year, and then when I picked my knitting back up in late November, so I suppose my knitting renaissance has been really focused on knitting more than one of the same pattern. For instance, I have knit my dog's matching sweaters for sweaters that I knit myself and Joel. So in that case, it's not the same pattern, but it's the same idea, right? And then I've knit 2 of the Norland hat. I plan to knit more of the breakwater hat and now the brioche beanie hat. I have at least 2 more of the ripple butt shorts, 1 pair for my sister and another pair for myself. And honestly, I probably will end up knitting a whole summer pajama wardrobe out of it because it's really difficult to thrift summer pajamas. And it's an interesting shift for me. I have in the past either knit the same sock pattern multiple times when I thought it was good for gifting, or if I knit it for myself and I love to wear it and then something happened to the first pair of socks, I would knit myself a replacement like I'm doing with the fox socks right now. And the other thing that I did with several sock patterns is adapted them into sweater patterns. But in general, I don't know if I've ever knit the same hat pattern twice before now. And I wonder if some of it has to do with now that I have some extra money and I want to support BIPOC designers, I am buying more patterns. And so I don't know if part of it is that I feel like I need to knit more than once to maximize my money spent, but I don't think that's it. I think it's nice that I'm getting so much value out of the patterns that I've bought. But I think what it is that I want to support the designers, and also I can tell that it's a really wonderful design. So once I knit it, it's really fun to knit, and it makes a really practical, useful object, and so I am knitting multiples. And it kind of feels like if it's not broken, why fix it? Especially since I track my yardage. I have a yarn scale so that I can see how much yarn the different patterns take, and I think that will really help me when I start to do some more stash busting kind of knitting later in the year. So I'm really kind of coming around to the idea of knitting more than one of the same thing. Of course, I kind of feel like all of my cowls and cardigans are just endless variations on the same silhouette. So in that sense, I've knit many multiples over the years, so many cropped cardigans. But I think there's a difference between that and then just knitting the same pattern more than once. So I'm curious, do you knit the same pattern over and over? I have not been like a vanilla sock knitter, even though I've knit almost 100 pairs of socks now. I tend to knit patterns, so I think that's another reason why I don't tend to knit the same thing over and over. I am more drawn to patterns than I am to vanilla knitting. I love vanilla knitting. I love doing it. It's just I tend to want more decorative finished objects. I think actually I have knit a couple hats more than once for gift knitting, but for myself, I don't usually want more than one of the same pattern. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you would like to keep in touch with me in between podcast episodes, you can find me as The Charm of It on Ravelry, Library Thing, Board Game Geek, and Instagram. I am most active on Instagram, and I am sharing how I wear my hand knits over in stories, and then I save them all to a highlight so that you can look at them at any time. And then I kind of share what I've been knitting, that kind of thing. So I would encourage you to follow me over there if you're interested. Thank you so much to everyone who likes and subscribes. It really encourages me, and I so appreciate the time and energy that it takes for you to leave comments. I love hearing them and replying to them. And like I said, if you would like to enter a giveaway for a copy of the Ripple Butt Shorts pattern, just leave a comment and I will draw a winner at the end of the month. I believe that is all for now. So until next time, and with many thanks to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Emma Lazarus, please remember that until we are all cozy, none of us are cozy.